this computer. Let's see if this works. Okay. So drafting an article. First step that we're going to do is if I have a, so let's say the article that I'm working on, I'm just going to call it draft one. And I am, my first step in general is sort of, you know, like brain dumping on that topic in the daily notes. Or on any other page. And if I think that, you know, the topic might relate to something, right? Like I'm going to use Command U to search. So let's say I think it relates to something in the refragmentation. And I'm just going to Shift Enter when I look at that to open this up over here. So I'm going to Alt drag a paragraph that I think is related to this article that I'm writing. And I'm just going to like drag this over here. And so this is just something where, like, you know, like maybe draft one relates to some topic, like, I don't know, like, do I have anything about coronavirus in here? No. Yeah. The point is, like, I can be on a bunch of different pages. I can drag a bunch of things in, and I'm just putting them in random sort of spots, but like tagging them with like draft one, right? So, or with like the overall topic of what I'm interested in.
Okay. Yeah. So the side panel is really useful for just pulling and gathering.
Yep.
Information from other pages.
And I might also just, you know, if I'd rather be, like Control Shift O again is going to like open up the block that I'm in, or it's going to open up the, if I'm inside a link, it's going to open up that page over here. So right now you can see there's nothing in draft one, but there's like 2 links to draft one over here. So this little counter tells you how many linked references there are to this idea. And so, you know, I might choose to have my sidebar open over here and just click into like what people are saying, and then, you know, maybe I'm going to like Alt drag this whole block, this whole thing on like switching costs over into my notes here. And so now I've got a bunch of notes around draft one in this. So then when I go into the draft, right, I've got all these things down here that are potentially useful for me for putting it into the draft. So like maybe I've like, and I can filter this by certain, like if I open up this filter, I can see what other topics I have. So you can see there's no topics that I've included anywhere in my, you know, indentation structure anywhere where I mentioned draft one. But maybe this article is actually about, it's about the idea of brain dumping, right? You know, as it relates to writers, right? And you know, I could see if there's any like good quotes from here for writers. So there are many ways that I could end up having like basically a buffer of things that I want open in the sidebar that's like going to get restructured into my draft. But when it comes time, so like you know, maybe I like go and I check out all the places where I'm talking about writers, or I'm interested in switching costs. So I'm going to shift click on that switching costs link and pull up all the notes I have about switching costs over here, right? Oops, I just canceled that. I tried to highlight something. I wish I could. Right. There's nothing in here that I want to use for this. But when I want to actually write, I'm going to Alt drag some stuff into the draft, and then from here, I can. I didn't want to Alt drag that. This will let me just like reorganize things and like write out my draft as a sort of like completed Zettelkasten type thing, right? Like, you know, this is the main point, right? Inside my draft, I might have, so I've got these topics. I could filter this down to like only show me stuff that relates to brain dumping, or I could basically say this paragraph over here might be useful for, you know, that's one of the like key ideas. Sorry, this key ideas. So I can filter this thing down and only find the key ideas from all of my like brain dumped notes about this thing. So this is tagged with key ideas. So I could drag this thing in here. All right. And the goal, oops, as you can see, each one of those items, if I click it, is going to bring me to the original place where that note lived. So these things are basically just embedding their content, and they're embedding the content on that page. So if I edit the content on this page, then like it will update in this location as well.
Cool.
So this is useful because when you're drafting stuff out, actually kind of like, I don't like these ones as good. They jump too much. You know, you want to be able to like reshuffle things around, right? And you can also, if you wrap this, right? So I'm going to shift click this to open it in the sidebar. And so if I like want to change, this is a workflow that we're going to be optimizing a bunch, but right. So my what I've done here is I've actually just, instead of embedding the content of the original location, I've just wrapped it in a markdown link, so that I still have the like original place where that idea came from, but I'm able to like write out a new phrasing on it. And so now if I go visit that link, I actually can see the new rephrasing in these linked references to that bullet point, right? And if I'm zoomed out, to the whole notes for March 17th, I can see how many of these notes have actually gotten placed somewhere. So then if I go back to draft one, right, let me remove these key ideas. Yeah. So that's sort of, and you can do things like you can, so I can see right now, basically by looking at those numbers, how many of these notes from down here have actually gotten placed inside the draft. So anything that doesn't have like a 1 on it, like hasn't been yet placed in here. So that's this allows me to then, if I want this thing in here, maybe it should be the main point. So now I've got this, I can close this one down, right? And I could say something like, hashtag placed, and just filter out all the items which have been placed. And so that'll make, it basically gives me a buffer of things that I know I want to put into my article. And I could just say for these ones, I could like mark them as hit to do a couple times, mark them as done, and I could then remove all the items which are done. So that's the general structure. And if you have a second draft or something, you might just, at the top of the page for draft one, you might just do something like, say, like, drafts, right, and draft two, right. Now if I go visit draft two, I can see that it's a draft of draft one. If I shift click draft two, I can see it over here. And then I can do the same thing that I was doing before, which is if there's something that I want to reuse, I can just move it over. By alt dragging it, I can see, basically based on those number counts, what actually got used in different drafts. So yeah. And then when I export this, also if I'm writing an actual article, I probably want to view it as a document. And so that way when I copy paste it, there won't be any bullets. And so this basically lets you keep track of the sort of evolution of an idea across a bunch of different pages too, or a bunch of different contexts. Like if, there's some core idea in my Zettelkasten or like core idea in my notes that I'm refining over time and using in a bunch of different ways in different places that I'm talking about it. That workflow is going to let me keep all those things linked up and have all those things then like reflected in my graph overview and that kind of thing. Yeah, that's that. Let me, did I even do recording? I don't even know if I